Okay.
Good morning and welcome back to Tom and Joanne's Coffee Hour. I'm Joanne Toronto.
I'm Tom Matthews.
And today we wanted to talk a little bit about a walkthrough with the Tom and Joanne team from a buyer's perspective. Because if you've ever bought a home, you know that it takes a little bit of time to find the right one. And you may walk through any number of homes before you find the one that you want to live in. And what we want to talk about today is a little bit about what makes us unique with the service and the value that we provide during a walkthrough.
Yeah, I mean, Joanne and I, as you know, have been in business together for 17 years. We've sold over 600 homes, but we've probably been through 800 plus home inspections because early in our career, we didn't know what to look for in a home. And we had so many deals fall apart over home inspection. And what we came to realize was that that's cost to the buyer. Home inspections, let's say around $1,000. It's time. Home inspection takes about 4 hours, and it's like heartbreak and aggravation. So Joanne and I wanted to see if we could eliminate that kind of heartache by listening and learning at these home inspections, and then having the confidence to just speak up and talk to our buyers. A lot of agents tell me that they won't talk about things they see in a home because they're scared of making a mistake and misidentifying something. But you know what? We feel like after the amount of years and time we have that we're okay. We're human. We live in an imperfect world and we will make mistakes. But by and large, we can save our clients a lot of aggravation and make them money. So Joanna, if you want to tell them a little bit about what a sample walkthrough looks like and what we do.
Yeah, so rather than just opening the door and letting you walk through, what we're looking for are things that, may be problems in the future, but we're also pointing out things that we think were really well done in homes because, over time, the housing stock that we have here in Massachusetts is the oldest in the country. And over time, either one owner or several owners have made upgrades or improvements or have also been keeping up with the maintenance on the property. And what we try to do is start from a holistic standpoint and, while looking at the outside of the house, taking a look at, the siding, the windows, the roof, the chimney, any plantings or grading that's around the house. And these are really simple things that a home inspector looks at that doesn't take really a super trained eye to be able to identify. But what we try to do is look at the types of materials that are used and talk to you a little bit about the life cycle of those materials and what it would look like going forward. Because we all know that, homes, they begin to deteriorate, especially on the outside from the second that they're built. So using materials that are longer lasting, for example, we now have the use of a product called AZAC, which is a composite material that looks and acts like wood, but isn't subject to any wood-boring insects or rot. So it's really a forever product that, and in some cases, doesn't even need to be painted. So we try to identify the products that are used to help you identify, what might be coming up down the pipeline or what has been done in the past to really make the exterior of that house very robust for the climate that we live in.
I mean, I will say roofs are one of the big topics that we talk about because you stand in front of a house before you go in the front door and you look at the roofing type. Is it a 2-tab shingle? Is it architectural shingles? Do they have a cedar roof? Do they have slate? Do they have synthetic slate? Why does it matter? And it matters because the cost of repair and replacement. I'm just going to use a regular architectural grade shingle. They typically last between 25 and 30 years. And what we look at is there moss on the roof, lichen. That gives us an indication about the shade, the amount of light hitting the house, and the age of the roof. We look at, are there shingle tabs that are starting to lift? Because those shingles are put down and they're nice and pliable when they're brand new and they're nailed down. As they start to harden with weather in time, they start to lift. When you start seeing cupping in the shingles, that tells us that the material is becoming brittle and the roof is near the end of its life. And wouldn't it be great as a home buyer when you're making that offer, knowing up front that your roof is 3 to 5 years from replacement? So maybe $10,000 to $15,000 expense, knowing that up front, particularly in this seller's market where you may not have a second chance to renegotiate, to be able to factor that kind of information into your equation. And that is a value add that we think is really important.
Yeah, we also spend a lot of time in the basement of homes. And in our geography, most homes have basements. There are some exceptions, of course, but the basement is really where you can learn a lot about the home, learn a lot about the way it was built, from our perspective, knowing the difference between the construction of the 1800s versus the 1950s versus the 1970s, 80s, 90s, and beyond. Knowing the different types of construction really helps us to understand what is happening in a basement. And so we like to look at, the heating systems. We like to look at the air conditioning systems. We like to look at the electrical panels. And while we're not taking any of these things apart, we're just doing a visual inspection to look at them. So we know the difference between circuit breaker panels and a fuse box, for example, and what the implications of those are. And, while a home inspection will certainly dive into these items much deeper, we're able to kind of identify, and maybe through some disclosures from the seller, the age and life expectancy of these types of things. We also like to look around for signs of water penetration, because basements are, naturally going to be a place where you might get some water. So sometimes water comes from mismanaged roof water coming off the roof and the downspouts. Sometimes it's coming from hydrostatic pressure behind the walls or underneath the floor. And understanding those dynamics helps us to be able to investigate a little bit more into basements and what could potentially be issues. We also look for just signs of water penetration, any watermarks on the backside of drywall or on the framing members that are exposed, maybe in a utility area or under a set of stairs. We also look at the type of foundation that it has and just tell you a little bit about, fieldstone construction and brick construction and, cinder blocks versus poured concrete of the modern day, and maybe some things that you can do to improve upon those things that are already there. So the basement is really a very important part of our walkthrough, where we can teach you a lot about a home and the way it was built.
Yeah, and if you think about why you're like wondering why are these so important, and the reason they're important is that a lot of people are looking for expansion possibilities within the footprint of a home. And if you want to expand into the basement, it's typically the most cost-effective way because the construction's already there. All you're typically doing is putting up drywall, adding a heat source, and adding some insulation. So if you have a broker that has an eye who knows what they're looking for, they can help you understand if a basement is a good candidate. Because historically speaking, fieldstone foundations, that is stone put together with a mortar cement, were intended to keep the structure up, but not necessarily intended to keep water out, which is why you saw the shift to a poured concrete foundation. And, we've seen too many examples of homes where they went and finished a basement that had fieldstone, and then 2 to 3 years later, they had a mold infested problem because water came in, the drywall wicked it up, and now you had a mold problem. And, that's a big health issue and a big cost issue. So that's really like what our goal is with walking people through homes, is that value add for a buyer to save you time, money, aggravation, heartache. And, I think this was a great topic to share with people today. Don't you, Joanne?
Yeah. I mean, we still strongly encourage people to have home inspections.
Absolutely.
And we have great inspectors that we work with. And, home inspections obviously are much longer than a walkthrough with Tom and I. But what we try to do is we want to identify as many things that we can to teach you about the home, so that when you get to the home inspection step, there really aren't any surprises. So what we want to do is create that value, teach you more about homes, so that with each one that you look at, you feel a little bit more comfortable with what you're looking at and what maybe a home might need in the future.
Well, thank you, Joanne, for your time today. And thank you, everyone. I'm Tom Matthews on the Tom and Joanne team.
I'm Joanne Toronto. Cheers.
Cheers.